Hey everyone, I've just started a fresh instance of Manor Lords on my main Mac, and we're kicking things off with a new challenge. If you'd like me to create a video on how I set up and run the game on my Mac, just let me know in the comments below. Now our mission is clear. We're going after the Merchant achievement. We need to level up to a small town without hunting or picking berries. Only about 1.5% of players have managed to pull this off. So let's see if we can join that elite group, shall we? And as always, I'll be summarising everything at the end. So, if you're just here for the recap, feel free to skip ahead to the last part. Let's give it a proper go. Alright, let's dive in. We've got Bartholmes, Peter and other mates working hard on the clay deposits, showing off the game's dynamics. But since the clay's run dry, it's time to demolish and move on. Nothing lasts forever in the medieval world. We're doing this experiment in the Selbitz region, which I chose for its lake, making it a bit easier to develop a town without hunting or foraging. But I've got a plan. I started by building a fisherman's hut with one guy handling the job, and look at him go, reeling in those fish like a pro. I'll walk you through my strategy for levelling up without relying on meat or berries. So stick around for the insights. Let's see if we can make this work. Alright folks, so here's the deal. I started by building Burgage plot level 1, and here's my insight. Always make the plots big enough for gardens right from the start. You want your villagers to have enough free time to tend to their backyard gardens, because veggies are the key to prosperity. As you can see, my villagers have plenty of food from their own plots, and they're only lacking a bit of clothing to be fully self-sufficient. Now, levelling up from level 1 to level 2 usually requires a proper source of materials like leather, wool or flax. The easiest way would be using hides from deer hunting, but since we're avoiding that strategy, we've got to be clever. Our focus is on the weaver's workshop, turning wool into yarn or flax into linen. No hunting, no foraging, just smart resource management, and that's where the real challenge begins. So here's the plan. We're building our future by properly planning and planting barley to level up from level 2 to level 3. It's an absolute must-have for advancing, but we're also going to focus on the real game changer, the input of wool, sheep, and lambs. Now here's my second insight, and trust me, it's a bargain. If you invest those development points wisely, your sheep population will grow like crazy, and they'll always be in demand. Sheep products are hands down the best-selling goods in the game. They practically fly off the shelves. So, getting a steady supply of clothing materials is key to keeping your villagers dressed. After all, in the medieval world, going naked isn't just a fashion faux pas, it's a sure sign you're under-leveled. Let's get those sheep in place and keep our villagers stylishly medieval. After all, these guys at our market need something to sell, right? It's a bit tragic when they're just standing there with empty shelves looking like they're trying to sell air. Let's make sure they've got the goods to keep business booming and our villagers happy. Alright, let's dive in and head over to Goldhof, which is the very first region we started developing. As you can see, it's really come a long way. We've got plenty of vegetable and apple gardens here, all looking pretty mature. I even built some larger, wider gardens to maximise space. The trick with apples is to give them enough room to grow. Otherwise, you'll notice they only grow properly in the middle of the plot. By making sure the gardens fully utilise every bit of space, we've got them producing nicely. Right now, our food supply is looking solid. I've got nearly 15,000 units, 12,000 veggies, and about 3,000 apples stored up in the granaries. Altogether, that's enough food to last us up to 40 to 60 months. And let's not forget the charcoal. I've stuck with charcoal because it's way more efficient than just using wood. I went ahead and built 2 or 3 charcoal kilns to keep things running smoothly. And here's my third insight and piece of advice. Always invest in charcoal burning and put a development point into it. Trust me, it's an absolute must. It rewards you with plenty of fuel to keep your homes warm through the winter, and it's one of the most reliable resources in the game. So make sure you prioritise it. It's a no-brainer for any serious town builder. Now let's talk about the iron deposit. I invested one of my development points into deep mining to get that infinite supply. As you can see, it shows the iron deposit is at 0, but somehow they're still digging away. I have no idea what they're mining down there, but the iron just keeps flowing into my pocket. I'm refining the metal slabs, and my blacksmiths are hard at work crafting all sorts of medieval gear, like chainmail and armour. You can also use the iron to produce swords and other equipment for your villagers, to defend against bandits and that pesky nearby baron. And as for using tithe to gain influence points, honestly, it's absolutely useless. I wouldn't recommend giving away your precious food to the church at this stage. It's just not worth it. Save your resources for things that truly matter and keep your villagers fed instead. Quick overview for Zweiau City. As you can see, I still have one development point unused because honestly, I'm not quite sure what to spend it on yet. I stuck to my usual strategy, building big vegetable plots to keep everyone well fed and then setting up apple gardens. Now, I've got a solid food supply and a massive stockpile of over 12,000 units of charcoal sitting in my warehouse. This region mainly serves as a base to expand my manor with another set of regulars since they seem to be the best warriors in the game. But there is a downside to this strategy, and I'll get into that a bit later on. For levelling up your cities, this is hands down the best setup I've tested. It's my #1 recommendation, the top priority strategy to use as your base for building a thriving city. If you want to progress quickly and efficiently, invest your development points into these ones. Now, if you'd be kind enough to follow my advice, this strategy will change the game for you. Sheep are the ultimate resource machines, providing wool for your tailors and weavers, meat for food, and hides for your butchers. It's like having a one-stop shop for everything you need. Even the sheep are putting in the effort, herding and multiplying on their own. So let's not be outdone by a bunch of fluffy animals, shall we? Stick to this plan, and you'll have a never-ending supply of all the essentials. Just like I did, make sure you build more butchers to keep that steady supply of meat and hides flowing. Now think about it. How fun would it be to see sheep herds grow to 1,000 or even 2,000, just crawling all over the place? Do you want me to do it? Let's go full shepherd mode and turn this into the fluffiest medieval chaos ever? Let me know in comments. Now, in the new region of Waldbrand, I decided to switch things up a bit and take a slightly different approach. As you can see, I still have one development point unused here, and for good reason. My strategy began with level 1 houses and large gardens, but this time I invested my first point in apple production. I saved up and spent around 50 gold to plant apple trees at those initial houses, and let me tell you, it's paying off big time. Now, I'm practically swimming in apples. Waldbrand has transformed into a well-developed village, actually one of the largest cities available in the game. To keep things balanced, I even limited the number of my cows and focused solely on oxen. It turns out that was more than enough to build the city. Sometimes, less really is more when it comes to strategy. With just a few well-chosen investments, Waldbrand has grown into a thriving medieval hub. And the last city I have here is Eichenau. In this city, I went for a balanced approach, with about 50-50 of vegetables and apples. Plus, I added fields for flax and barley. It turns out this strategy works exceptionally well. I've got plenty of food, a solid supply of resources, and more ale than anyone could ever dream of. Honestly, it's like the medieval version of a dream town. Probably the best place to live for any villager looking for the good life. Another useful thing is that you could limit the position of your wild animals by moving them closer to your village, which will speed up your hunters' turnaround time when they go out to hunt. If your deers are too far from where you've built your village, just guide them down by adding more fields to redirect their movement in the right direction. And here's a pro tip. Lock them in a place like I did, with fields surrounding them on all sides, left, right, up, and down. That way, you keep your prey exactly where you want them. So going back to our main region, when it comes to fish, They're a renewable resource that won't run out, which means all my Burgage plot level 1s are developing nicely. The best part? I've got 7 unemployed villagers, and in this case, a high unemployment rate is actually a good thing. You want to keep some of them free so they have enough time to work on their gardens and help with the town's growth. Now, the most important thing is to keep a close eye on your trading posts. This is where you'll generate the gold you need by selling resources like planks produced from wood, or even surplus vegetables from your villagers. I've experimented with selling tools, but honestly, it's not worth it. Establishing trade routes costs about 50 times more than the actual value of the tools, so it just doesn't make sense. And let's be real, tools don't have much of a purpose in the game right now, so don't waste your time on them. Instead, focus on creating a steady supply of planks and veggies, which provide a reliable income. This will be your main source of gold to invest back into developing your backyards and expanding your vegetable gardens. When it comes to managing trees, like I've done here, I'm always expanding the area to keep it close to the woodcutters. It's crucial to keep the forest growing, because if you don't, you'll eventually run out of wood, and that's bad news for your village's health and growth. For me, it's all about using those keyboard shortcuts to quickly expand the forest area. And as you can see, I'm constantly watching my gold supply. I literally wait for every 50 gold to come in, and as soon as it does, I invest it straight into a new apple garden for the village. My strategy is simple: sell the wood, get the gold, and then use it to build more apple gardens. It's the cycle that keeps my village thriving and growing. Alright guys, let's dive into the fun part: combat. We've got enemy units spotted, and it's time to see how we handle this situation. As you can see, we've got 4 packs of enemy troops coming in. My warriors are spread out, mostly stationed in my main region, Holtoff, while my retinue is split between the manors. Right now I've got 3 manors built, each fully loaded with 24 fighters, all ready for action. Now, here's the trick. When you're commanding your troops, you have to place the flag strategically to get them to line up properly. Personally, I like to micromanage them into a tight formation, a big box of warriors. This way, they stay as a cohesive unit, rather than stringing out in a long, vulnerable line. It's all about swarming the enemy with at least 2 or 3 packs per unit, turning it into an unfair fight in our favour. I don't believe in playing fair with the enemy. Stacking the odds in our favour is how you win battles without losing a single soldier. Lining them up in a queue just doesn't cut it. It's all about the crowd control, folks. Always remember, it takes time for your troops to move into position, so don't let yourself get caught with the battle starting while half your soldiers are still on the way. By the time you have 4 or 5 regions, things are spread out, and you might only have 2 or 3 packs ready when the enemy shows up. In those cases, it's best to pull your troops back a bit, maybe even into the village. This works because if the enemies have to squeeze through roads between buildings, they end up lining up like they're waiting in line for medieval fast food. Makes them much easier to deal with. But honestly, I prefer meeting them out in the open field, where my well-trained soldiers can show off their skills. Just look at them, all in their shiny chainmail, fully equipped, lined up like a true medieval army. It's a sight to behold. Right now, we've got some brigands coming in. They're just regular bandits, nothing too dangerous. My archers will rain arrows down on them, and you'll see their numbers drop before they even get close. Now, here's the thing. Your troops have a mind of their own, so you've really got to control them manually. Select each pack, move them in and out, and always be on the lookout for the best positioning. It's pretty straightforward. Archers and bowmen should always be placed behind your main line. They might not be heavily armoured, but they deal a massive amount of damage. So, make sure they're lined up properly to maximise their impact while staying protected. Sometimes they don't even make it to the fight. They just turn tail and run. And if they do manage to reach close combat, I'm not worried. My guys are properly trained and geared up, while these brigands are running around like they're auditioning for the role of medieval pincushion. Easy pickings, easy peasy. 1 pack down, another on its way, and we'll handle them just the same. The brigands are definitely not happy to see my troops. They're just a ragtag bunch compared to my well-equipped warriors. You can tell they're already intimidated, trying to sneak their way in and steal something. But they're moving so slowly, while my guys are raining down a hurricane of arrows on them. Just look at this. Their morale is dropping fast. They've already lost the battle in their minds before it's even begun. My effectiveness is climbing higher, while theirs is plummeting. It's clear this is going to end in an imminent defeat for them. That's the power of my militia, fearless, relentless, and always one step ahead. These poor brigands, they're trying to act tough, but let's be honest, they look like they showed up to a sword fight with a spoon. My guys are out here raining arrows like it's a medieval monsoon, and the bandits are just standing there thinking, maybe we should have picked a different career. I mean, they've already given up in their heads. They know this is going to end in an epic fail. That's what happens when you mess with the best. My militia's motto, we fight, you flop. My usual experience with these brigands and enemies, they're always fleeing from us. It's like they've got a sudden urge to get back to their day jobs. The trick here is knowing you can only disband your units in their home region. So, you've got to move them back to where they belong first, and only then can you disband them. Trust me, you want to do this so your villagers can get back to their normal lives. I learned this the hard way. I once left a pack of soldiers standing in the woods, only to realise an hour later that I'd completely forgotten about them. Poor guys were just hanging out in the forest, probably wondering if they'd been demoted to tree duty. Now, here's one of my main insights for you. In your main region, Goldhof for me, it's absolutely essential to invest in two key development points: chain armour and advanced arm making. This region is your home base, where most of your militia will be stationed, so you need to make sure they're properly equipped. Producing mail armour and helmets is a game changer. It's a must-have for equipping your citizens at Burgage plot level 3 and above. Even though higher levels are planned to be added later, gearing up now will give you a massive advantage. I've seen a significant drop in casualties since I started crafting armour in my workshops. So, take my advice. Focus on mail armour and helmets and watch your troops become unstoppable in battle. Oh, we finally reached the end of the game. Just take a look at what I've got here. I did lose a few red units in the final battle with my neighbour, so it's time to recruit some fresh troops, especially since I've got a whopping 47,000 gold collected in taxes, practically swimming in gold at this point. What's really fun is that you can personalise each unit. Take Conrad for example. This guy eats more than anyone else and often leaves nothing for his comrades. It's like every character has their own quirky legend. I'm really hoping the developers expand on this and make them behave even more uniquely. Let's see what they have in store for us in future updates. Could get interesting. For my final insights, let's talk about cell bits. I spent my first development point on orchards and then moved on to sheep breeding, which worked out well enough to boost the development of my buildings. My third point went into charcoal burning, which has been a game changer. Now, I still have 3 development points left, and honestly, after playing over 500 hours, plus an extra 100 in this instance, I can confidently say I don't need them. Heavy plough, rye cultivation, irrigation, trapping, foreign management, and especially beekeeping have all turned out to be pretty much useless. They didn't add any real value to my strategy, so my advice: save those points for something more worthwhile. Now let's talk about how the game's mechanics handle turnarounds. I've got 3 buildings under construction at the moment, all started at the same time. As you can see, the progress is all over the place. The building on the left is at 25%, the one in the middle is at 19 to 20%, and the one on the right is lagging behind at just 6%. They're developing at different rates, which is pretty interesting to watch. What you can do is play around with the order of priority. Try changing the setting from medium to high, or even to the highest, and see what happens. It's a good way to experiment and see who crosses the finish line first. Let's do a quick fast forward and see how these changes affect the development over time. Let's watch and learn. So the building on the right is lagging behind, so let's switch its construction priority to the highest setting and see what happens. It seems that the speed of construction really depends on how quickly the roots and materials, like stones, are delivered to the site. The left building is nearly done, while the right one is steadily catching up. It's not exactly a race, but I'm curious to see which one will finish first. Personally, my money's still on the left one. So guys, here we are watching the great medieval construction race, and they're both inching their way north. Honestly, I thought the right one would pull ahead since I gave it the highest priority, but nope. Looks like it's just taking a casual stroll while the left one's sprinting to the finish line. And there it is. The left one crosses first, taking the gold medal. The right building's probably still wondering if it's even in a race. I guess priority settings are more like polite suggestions in this game. My final thoughts on the game? Well, it's time for me to take a stroll through my medieval land, checking on my castle surroundings and making sure my villagers are hard at work. As you can see, there's still plenty of activity in the woods, and we've got a few mining operations in progress. But let's be honest, there's still plenty of work to be done by the developers team too. So, I'll have a quick wander around and then get back to my tough medieval duties. I hope you enjoyed my review, and I truly hope some of my insights were valuable to you. If you have any questions, need advice, or just want to chat more about the game, drop me a comment below. I'd love to hear from you.